Hey, Internet, life's a funny thing. Never quite know what you're going to get. I don't mean to be quoting Forrest Gump there, but I guess I just did. So, somebody mentioned somewhere, and I can't remember where. I don't know if it was a podcast I was listening to or if it was one of you. They were talking about understanding why we do what we do and how that is such an essential part of being who you are, whoever you might be. Anybody who's just doing something because it's just what they do, well, that person is effectively a slave to that thing, right? You're not free at all. You're certainly not free in mind. And one of the things about Christianity's strength, where it really has its strength, sorry about that noise if you hear it, where it really has its strength is in the why. I mean, the what's important too, obviously. Jesus of Nazareth, being actually God and man, is, well, fairly important, right? That's a strength. When your God is man and there for you, active, I mean, that's power, right? How can you ignore that? But why? And this is even deeper when you dig into why we do what we do as his ingathered people, as the citizens of this God-man's kingdom. Why would we, or do we do what we do when we gather together to what? To be religious about him? To have his religion? I know there's that whole spiritual religious thing. I've talked about that enough in the past. You can, YouTube search that and you'll find more. But the point is a little bit more than just embracing the fact that if you're a Christian, you have a religion and that this is strength, and that abandoning that is to retreat basically from the closed mind of the world and to give them power to reject us without having to ever think about doing so. Aside from that, the religiosity of your faith, having a religion, is really a big part of then being who you are as a Christian, regardless of what the world might think, regardless of how it impacts our mission. But one of the things that I've noticed in late modern, postmodern, whatever we are, American Lutheran Christianity, is how little we know why we do what we do. There's whole swaths of people who are committed to what we do no matter what, because. That's it. Because. Right? That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. And the same people will at times kind of mock the idea of it's the way we've always done it. Well, maybe make fun of that with regard to somebody else, but then when you point out that that's their argument, well, it's not that makes them angry. I don't think it's that at all. It's just like it's not heard. It's interesting to me that someone who wants to stand on, well, this is just the way it is. It's always been this way. Let's not change it at all. That person doesn't hear you, or I shouldn't say, that person doesn't hear that argument that they're making. And they wouldn't hear it if someone made it to them either. They would reject it, right? If someone said, you should continue driving on the empty gas tank till it runs out of gas because you've been driving on the same gas tank for at least a week now, and that's the way you've done it, so don't change, right? They would be like, that's crazy talk. What are you talking about? But then when it comes to protecting something, it can, the thing that matters to you that you don't want to admit that you're not maybe thinking about, or that you don't know the why about, it just is where you found comfort. And comfort's good. I'm not against comfort. But if the comfort has no why, well, the thing isn't that you can't get comfort out of it. You can get comfort out of a what that doesn't have a why. But what you shouldn't do is expect anybody to convert to that, right? Somebody who doesn't already get comfort out of your what that has no why, they're going to look at your what and they'll be like, that's a strange thing. Okay, cool, man. Good on you. You enjoy that. But not, I don't need that. I mean, this is sort of what idolatry really was back in the day, right? Like, here's my god, Moloch. He's a statue. He's pretty cool. He's helped me out. And you're like, yeah, all right, good for you, man. I got Balaam over here, and Baal over here. So I'm good. I don't really need yours. Thanks, though. Huh? There's no why. There's no answer to the why. So, one of the most important things for modern Christianity, American, discipleship, the beautiful war of this present age, is to recover the why. For you, for us, and for the sake of our confession before the world. And that means especially when we gather together to receive the gifts of God and His Word, which He then mysteriously presents to us in other ways, bread and wine, all that kind of stuff. We want to know not just what we've done, or that it's written to do it, and that goes for whether it's in your hymnal or whether it's just been in your bulletin that way for a long time. We want to know why. Why do we do it that way? What good is it doing for us that we might not even see? And so I want to emphasize this then. That's kind of the point of this video at all, is that the confession of Lutheran Reformation theology. It's really, those words just don't help in the present, do they? But, because he's like, become a Lutheran or else, right? That's not what I mean, but it is at the same time. The freedom of the gospel discovered in the Reformation understood that the liturgies of the past were trying to protect something from us, from our human nature. And they saw it. And they saw it had been taken away from them and buried under cloak of darkness for decades, centuries, for lifetimes, really, and particularly individual lifetimes. And so they polished it. They cleaned it off. They got it back. And they left it for us. And now today we're in a similar kind of spot where, again, we're in need of polishing that thing off, seeing what it's there to tell us. That it's not just there to do as if God requires rites of ritual from us for Him. There's none of that. What they are is ancient words that are true, that form a pattern of sound promise, really, sound preaching. So that even if the sermon that you're receiving or hearing, whatever's going on from some guy up front, or girl, I guess, who says stuff and says God says stuff, whether or not it's actually what God says from the Scriptures, whether or not it's actually, He mentions the Scriptures, the liturgy, when it's not undone, and when it is then understood and believed, and that's important for you as a receiver, well, it protects you and preserves you. It gives you Christianity. And if you walk into a church that you've not seen liturgy done before, and you see that for the first time, that's probably kind of hard to notice. It's too foreign, right? It's too weird. It's too different. It's too not what you're used to, especially if you've grown up in more pop American Christianity, which you can call Protestantism, evangelicalism, revivalism. I mean, they keep changing their names so often, who knows what. It's largely the same bird. And we've been saying that for 500 years about that. But if you've grown up in that standard or that liturgy of worship, which is by and large, let's get our emotions really heated, let some guy try to convince us of something, and then dedicate ourselves to that thing, and whether you know that's what's happening, that's what they're doing to you, is how they're doing their planning every week. Well, when you come from that, wherein then the whole goal of the team every week is to stir up your emotions, to hook you with an advertisement, and you walk into a liturgical service where, frankly, there is there is almost no thought given to whether or not you like it. Now, because I am who I am in this present age, both American and Lutheran, I do give some thought to it because I want to translate it. But I don't ever ever want to translate it in such a way that you wouldn't only be just learning more what it actually is, whether or not you like it. Huh? And so, that foreignness, again, is, now take this the right way, but it is a re-emphasis of God's word, which says he does not need you. He does not care if you like him or don't like him, if you want to serve him or don't want to serve him. And by does not care, I mean you're not going to change his mind on anything by those things, right? It's not as though he does not desire that you would know him, serve him, receive him for who he is. He absolutely desires that. That's been his plan from the beginning, and that is what the goal of the redemption we have in Christ is to put us back into that. But he also knows that we don't have that to begin with. And the last thing he's going to try to do is come along and like tickle coochie coo us into some sort of inversion or trick that would take our hatred of him and try to tweak it into love of him. He knows that's not going to work. So he doesn't come down and plant his feet on the land and the sea the way we would expect him to. No, he comes down as he is, as himself. And whether that's as the pillar of cloud, which descended on Sinai, or as the hidden Mount Zion, which is in the bread and wine, is the bread and wine, that is a entirely foreign reality to the flesh, to who you are. And the word the Bible uses for that foreign reality is holy. A word that gets thrown around a lot, often confused with righteousness. It's not as though they're not connected to each other, but really not the same word. Holy. I mean, before anything else, it means foreign. Totally foreign, odd, weird. And so if you're going to a worship assembly, calling upon a God, and you weren't raised in that, right? And it doesn't seem foreign to you, well, it's not much of a holy God then. Yeah? And frankly, if you're going to a worship assembly and you were raised in it, and it doesn't seem at least foreign to the world, well then, it's not much of a holy God, is it? I mean, he may yet be, but we sure don't seem to think he is, based on what we're doing in response to his holiness. If that makes sense. And what I really want to get myself, I guess, I'm talking to myself here a little bit, but I'd love to see American confessing Reformation Bible believers, Lutherans. I'd love to see us believe that. Embrace that. Stop being ashamed of the fact that we stick out a little weird on some issues. And maybe just dare to think for a moment that it's a great strength. I tweeted this a little while ago, and I'm working on trying to really get this one in my head, right? Not just my head, but my heart too. Like, what if the coolest thing in the world, the most awesome practical theology that exists, particularly for the dark shores of our evil age, is not just the practice of closed communion, but talking about it. Like, my whole ministry, I have tried to make these announcements when you can, and I try to make them often, although sometimes other elements of life for the parish require that you kind of just give other longer announcements. Let the reader understand. But I've always done it as sort of more trucks. Come on, trucks. I've always done it as sort of an apology. Like, oh, I know this is kind of weird, and we're sorry, and but it's just kind of what we believe, and we really mean it for your good. We promise. It just seems like we're mean, right? Like that's sort of been my MO there on that. And I don't know that I'm not gonna say it's wrong. I mean, I don't know. But what if it was like, hey, and so you know, the coolest thing ever is about to happen here, but you can't be a part of it because, well, you're not part of it. Hey, but it's cool. You should totally be part of it later. Soon. Yeah? Talk to us. Now, maybe that's not how I would do it still, but right, get the feel of that. And forget that even if I just said that, if I actually just thought that about close communion, the most apparently or theoretically difficult practical theology we have is so difficult that in my church body, I'm not sure how many pastors actually practice it. Yeah? And I'll admit, as hard as I've tried, I don't know. It's a tough one without the whole team pulling in the same direction. And by that, I don't mean the other pastors, I mean the parish too. Hard to know sometimes. Yeah? So anyway, that's not really the point, right? The point here is the why. Recovering the why. What are they building on my street? There we go. One more. It's like they're going to put down driveway stuff maybe. So if that could be that true about close communion, how much more could it be true about everything else that's there in the liturgy that does in fact flow from the scriptures themselves and is the confession of the great cloud of witnesses from the past, reminding us of what we've been given to sustain us through the dark and evil age, through the valley of the shadow of death, until our Lord returns, until he takes us to rest in him until he returns. What might we gain if we knew why? If you knew why it went from this to that to this to that. And no, we shouldn't really get rid of that this week, right? If you knew why. And, yeah, I mean, I'll go off on another tangent, but that gets to the hymns in so many ways. I mean, if you want the hymns to be these beautiful, amazing things that you love to sing, you have two things that have to happen. One of them is you need to be willing to learn music. I don't mean read it, right? But to listen and try. And if you won't do that, the hymns you're not going to like the hymns much. Yeah? Except for the other reason, which is the better reason, really. Better thing, is you got to read the words of the hymns. Not just like have your eyes go over the words and have sounds come from your brain to your mouth because of the letters. Like anybody can do that, right? But if you want the hymn to be powerful to you, truly, I'm not talking about that it moved you emotionally. I mean, that too, but if that's all, that's vanity, is what that is. I'm talking about if you want to be powerful to salvation for you. If you wanted to raise you from the dead, if you wanted to regenerate your heart and your mind in Christ, like a way bread for the sojourner as he moves toward the better country, well, then you got to read the words. You got to know why those sounds are there and know that that's not because of the tune. The sounds are not there because of the tune. The tune, in theory, is there because of the sounds of the words, but no, not really. The tune is there, in theory, because of the meaning of the words, the why of the what. And if you're not going to learn that, that's never going to make any sense. You're not going to like it much. Unless you're just one of those random people that likes weird stuff that isn't like anything else in the world, which I guess there's a generation arising that's a little like that right now, yeah? You got to know the why of the words. And so if you're new to this whole thing, liturgy particularly, I highly recommend you don't bother singing at all. No? Save that. There's plenty of time for that. You've done that most of your life, right? Why don't you just read? Just read it. See what we're singing. And frankly, if you've been doing it your whole life, you should probably do that too once or twice. You might be surprised. Especially when it's like the hard hymn and you're like, oh, I got to figure out the tune. Don't know what happened. Just let whoever the 5 people who know it are sing it, and then you read it and strive to understand it, because it's when you know what those words are saying that you might have a reason to want to learn the hard tune, because it's worth singing because of the words. And so the tune, well, maybe it's worth learning. And then once you learn it, well, you might find out that the tune you thought was so awful is actually worth singing once you can, I don't know, mature a little, grow, learn, change, those kinds of things. Why we do what we do. I would contend that if you don't know why, well then maybe you don't know. Yeah? Thankfully, we have a God who, well, he knows we don't know. And that hasn't stopped him from telling us anyway, so that we might know again. Yeah? Catch you guys later. Rock on.